Hey there, it's Coach Bradley T. Today I'm going to be reacting to the Danielle Lawrie video that she posted on Twitter and TikTok. I think it was around April 2nd, 2024. I've been sent this video multiple times from a number of my coaching friends and some of the parents that I coach. They just want to know what my thoughts on it because in it, Danielle talks a lot about the interplay and the interrelation of using data and analytics and being a competitor on the field and kind of where those two things intersect. So I'm just going to watch it and we're just going to go through it. For those of you that don't know, Danielle Lawrie is a Canadian softball player. She played for the Canadian national team for many, many years, was a bronze medalist. She also played at the University of Washington. She is one of, if not the best Canadian softball player of all times. She's a NCAA Women's College World Series champion with the University of Washington. She's also a two-time college softball national player of the year. So she was a pitcher. She could also hit, but her pitching was her main thing, and she was absolutely dominant. Like she basically single-handedly won the University of Washington, the Women's College World Series in 2009. I had the good fortune of watching her play, and she is literally one of the most competitive pitchers I've ever seen in my life. Her skill set was otherworldly, but in the circle, she was absolutely dominant. She was fierce. She was so intense. She was so much fun to watch play. So when it comes to time to talking about being a competitor, she knows what she's talking about. So let's get into it. So I'm just going to run the whole thing here. A word of caution for some people out there. There's a swear word or two in here. So if you don't want to hear that, you might just want to skip ahead. I'm not going to be bleeping anything out because I think it kind of keeps with the context and keeps with her message of being a competitor. So we're just going to let it run here in full. Then I'll start breaking it down.
This message is for my softball pitchers. Listen up. I know that data, analytics, Rapsodo, all of these things are a huge piece in our game right now. But can I tell you a little secret? That shit doesn't measure the bulldog mentality. It doesn't measure the absolute beast mode. It doesn't measure how you thrive under pressure. It doesn't measure how you choose to respond through failure. Okay? It is a small piece that sometimes we get too caught up in, but do not forget, confidence is gained through preparation. How hard are you willing to work? So when you get into those moments of pressure, you feel effing invincible. It's awesome. I love that Rapsodo and the analytics, and that is starting to change our game. But do not forget how big of a badass you are. Do not forget when you enter those lines and you set foot in that circle, there is no one better. And I feel like people are missing that piece because data seems to be taking over our world. Y'all are bougie bitches. Don't forget it.
Okay, so there's a lot there, and there's a lot of really good content in it. I'm just going to go back and forth through it, pick out some of the key parts of it that I just want to address. So I'm just going to restart the video and kind of go through it and then kind of break it down. For those of you that don't know about myself, I use a lot of data in a lot of my coaching. We have Rapsodo units at our facility. We use them extensively. I've been using Blast Motion since 2018. I've gone into it a ton. Locally here, I'm kind of known as the data guy. I'm the one that goes back to it a ton, so I know what she's talking about where she's saying that like data is taking over the world. It is definitely taking over for good and for bad. I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've been guilty of it to myself. So I'm just going to go through what she kind of has to say here and kind of talk about how players and coaches can kind of interpret this message a little bit better and maybe use it for their own purposes. So
this message is for my softball pitchers. Listen up. I know that data, analytics, Rapsodo, all of these things are a huge piece in our game right now. But can I tell you a little secret? That shit doesn't measure the bulldog mentality.
So her saying that it doesn't measure the bulldog mentality, I absolutely love it because 100% she's entirely correct. It does not measure that. What those things measure are just the cold hard truth about what is happening to the ball or your bat, and that is it. And a lot of the context that a lot of the players and the coaches get wrapped up in is that does the data show that my kid is good at softball? Well, I don't know. Like, they're two different things. They are just measuring some of these subsets of the skills that you need to perform within the sport, and whether it's good or bad really depends on what you do on the actual field of play, where we don't have a Rapsodo unit on the field of play. You can hit with your blast motion. It's actually the best way to collect game and real world data, and I've done it a few times, and it's really interesting just to see how the data that comes out of your game swing is largely different from the swing that you have in the cage. But these technological pieces absolutely do not measure that bulldog mentality and the competitor that you are.
The bulldog mentality. It doesn't measure the absolute beast mode. It doesn't measure how you thrive under pressure. It doesn't measure how you choose to respond through failure. Okay,
here's where I want to interject a little bit, where I don't disagree. It's everything that she's saying is 100% true. What I've heard from a few coaches and a few parents that I've kind of talked to about this is that, is this right? Like, is the data kind of useless? And that's not what she's saying here. Like, what she's saying is that those things do not measure those things, so you also have to work on them. You can't just get away with having good numbers. You have to be able to actually be a competitor and actually perform once the game starts. One of the things that I will say as a side note to this, though, is that I've been working with using data for a long time. And one of the things that it actually ends up doing a ton that I've seen is that as a coach, when you use it correctly, it can actually help to train that bulldog mentality. There is nothing that I like doing more than turning the Rapsodo hitting unit on, showing a player what their personal best has been. Let's just say that they've previously hit a ball at a max of 64 miles an hour. And I say, okay, today you're going to take your next 20 swings, you're going to try to hit a ball that hits 66. And just to see that competitor start to come out in them, which you never get in a cage because you're just taking mindless swings usually. When you have data that you can actually show them, you can actually give them something to chase, and you can actually create that bit of a competitor and a bit of a bulldog in the training environment when you do use the data. So coaches and players out there just know that just the numbers by themselves, they don't mean anything, but you can use them to help to train some of those things that she's actually talking about here.
It is a small piece that sometimes we get too caught up in.
Okay, that is 100% true. Players and coaches alike, we get caught up in the numbers so much. And a lot of times I just have to turn the technology off and just tell players, just go and perform the skill. Like, we're not looking at the numbers anymore. You're getting too obsessed with it. We have to just take a step back now and actually just perform and actually see what might help you when you get onto the field of play.
We get too caught up in. But do not forget, confidence is gained through preparation. How hard are you willing to work? So when you get into those moments of pressure, you feel effing invincible. It's awesome. I love that Rapsodo and the analytics, and that is starting to change our game. But do not forget how big of a badass you are.
Very true. Never forget that when you get onto the field of play, you have to have a certain sense of that confidence. Again, I kind of just mentioned it before, using the data, that's how I kind of approach some of my coaching, is I use the data to try and train those players that if you fail to hit a personal best today in the cage, can you handle that failure? Can you come in your next session and still perform and still be excellent and still try your best? Even though your numbers might not look that good, can you still do your best and not let that beat you? Just like on the field of play, are you still going to be a competitor no matter what the situation is?
Do not forget, when you enter those lines and you set foot in that circle, there is no one better. And I feel like people are missing that piece.
That is very true. I think that everybody, let's just kind of go back and actually let's re-listen to that. And like this applies to anywhere on the field of play.
You enter those lines and you set foot in that circle, there is no one better. And I feel like people are missing that piece.
There's a lot of players out there that get onto the field of play, and they just hope that their team wins, and frankly a large part of them hope that the rest of their team kind of makes all the plays for them. you need to get onto the field of play and be ready to perform and ready to excel when you step on the field between those lines. And you can't let the data and the numbers and all that stuff start to take over your mindset, because it's just not going to work, because those numbers don't mean anything when you get onto the field of play. But on that same token, they can prepare you when you get onto that field of play.
Because data seems to be taking over our world. Y'all are bougie bitches. Don't forget it.
I am not going to comment on that last line. I don't really know what the term bougie bitches even really means. So I'm just going to default to that it's a good thing, and players should be thinking that they are that, because I do not know what that context is. And that's all I'm really going to talk about, that last part. So I just want to just sum it up here with one of the things that I love about data, and one of the expressions that I've always enjoyed, is that data doesn't tell you if you're good or bad at softball, but data does give you the truth. If you are throwing a curveball and your average curveball is 56 miles an hour with 4 inches of horizontal break, that's the truth. Your average curveball is 56 miles an hour with 4 inches of horizontal break. Is that good or bad? We don't know. It's up to you to start to learn how to use that 56 mile an hour curveball with 4 inches of horizontal break when it comes time, when there's a batter in the box and the game is on the line and you have an umpire there calling the balls and strike, and this hitter is trying to do damage off of you. The truth is, your pitch can do that. That is what the data can tell you. But what the data cannot tell you is that pitch going to work in a game? If you're 12 years old and you're throwing a curveball at 56 miles an hour, you're probably dominant with that pitch. If you're playing Division I college and you're throwing a curve at 56, you're probably not going to be that good. But the truth is that your pitch does that. Putting it into the context of what you can do on the field of play is completely different. So that's all I'm going to say on that. With the explosion of data that we have, yes, it is awesome, and I personally love it, and I personally think it's the wave of the future, and I love using it in my coaching. It has helped so many players that I've worked with over the years, and so many players love to come in and they just love to train with it. Some of them get too obsessed with it, so we have to kind of scale it back and kind of put things into the context of what's going to work when they get onto the field. But now that there's so much more data, which is one thing that Danielle did not talk about here, is that, which I actually think that I actually agree with her more because of what I'm about to say. Because data and analytics are taking over the world, being a competitor and a bulldog is going to be even more important, because everyone is going to know what their numbers are. Everyone is going to know what their data is. What's going to separate the good from the great are those that are the competitors, are those that are the bulldogs, those that have the confidence, those that are the badasses when they get onto the field, because they know that everybody at that level has similar data and similar underlying metrics. What's going to separate the good from the great are those that have the mental piece to it that can actually perform when it counts. I'm Coach Bradley T. That's it for this one. I'll catch you next time. Until next time, work hard, level up, compete, repeat.